I say welcome back. Welcome back, guys, to my video. Alright, today's video is how to rule imagination. I need you to understand that imagination is never on your side. I need you to understand why. I need you to understand that imagination is ego. I need you to understand that we'll look at a sex addict who has had many sexual encounters with women over the years. I promise you that person has fucked 5,000 women. I promise you they're all beautiful looking. I promise you no matter what, that person is going to imaginate even more about the woman that he's had sex with. I promise you that when he imagines all these women he's had sex with already, I promise you that he becomes invested in the ego to go and have more sex and have more of the same, because he believes that he is the ego. I need you to understand what's happening over here. You, over your lifetime, every single day, create images and memories of what happened. You are probably even going into the past to recognize what someone said and how beautiful someone was, and those sexual encounters you had and how you did them in, and you're going into the mind because you believe that you are your imagination. You have to realize that you are never your imagination. You have to realize that the imagination rules you. You have to understand that you never let the imagination rule you. You need to understand that when you picture someone from the past, you're really saying that you are your ego. You have to understand that the ego sends out images and imagination into your life so that you fall into the depths of hell. I need you to understand that you never picture and imagine anything. I never need you to picture and imagine anything. You will otherwise be called a daydreamer. I need you to understand that you need to live in reality now. I never need you to be in imagination. I need you to understand that everything is manifested in reality. I need you to understand that imagination does nothing. You have to understand that imagination is only the ego. You have to understand that what is even greater than imagination is living in the present moment and never visiting the past memories of your life, because you have sorrow for yourself, because you feel sorry, and because you miss someone. Or because because you miss some type of sexual encounter in your life. You never miss a sexual encounter by going into your mind to see how you're doing it in the toilet with a woman or man. I realize that's an ego attempt for you to go have more sex and to have more of that. You have to realize that in my daily life, I have strippers that I've been with. I have people I've had sex with. I've had memories and moments where I've been imagining about a beautiful woman, and I have them over and over in my mind. I realized that I distinguished that my mind is my ego. I have distinguished that all these images that happen is because of thoughts. I realized thoughts are ego. You have thoughts always. You can never stop your thoughts. You can, however, overcome all of your images and thoughts and ego with the heart only. You have to understand it's called heart coherence. You need to use heart coherence. You have to use heart coherence in order to overcome all obstacles of the mind, which include imagination and past memories and how you were in life. You may have this big database of memories. I promise you that never matters anymore. I promise you what matters is this moment. I promise you that in order for you to really rule the world, you have to rule your imagination. You have to rule this moment and your ego and who you are. You need to take control. You have to realize that the more you have memories in life, you have to understand, and the more you repeat them, you're stuck in the past. You create memories. You have to realize that when you create memories, you're just living in the moment. You never go to revisit the memories. You never revisit the past. You have to understand. You have to understand, I've always been searching before in order to go revisit a memory and to go and do something like someone in terms of how life was. I realized no matter what, I returned to my friends. I realized I was never supposed to do it. I was never supposed to return anywhere. You never return. You just keep moving forward. You realize that life is moving on. You realize how it was is never how it's going to be now. You have to realize that what's happening today is going to change in 10 years' time, and your memory today is going to be different. You have to realize what's left. You are left. You have to realize that only I is left. You have to realize that now you have to see that the most previous 10 years of your life, you have to understand how many people have you helped in that time. You have to understand, have you been having too much fun, or have you really dedicated yourself to business and personal growth and really started to be compassionate with those around you? Because that is the way to become more of who you need to be, and never the other way around. You have to realize that you never just waste time. I realize that many people are living for the weekends and going drug and party festivals and are party goers around hostels in Australia. I realize many people are just wasting time on TV and news and drama. I realize they're wasting time. I realize they're wasting time. I realize they're watching drama films and CSI and whatever. NCS. I realize NCS. I realize that I never exposed my ego either. You have to realize that you need to be a person who really, really emphasizes on how you do better. I realize the car SUV. I realize that car has nothing to do with this video. I realize it's more that I have to repeat these abbreviations. I heard my ego said SUV. I have to put the I there. I have to say this car SUV. I realize now I've overcome the mind because I put the I before the SUV. I put the I before the SUV. I realize you need to do that. You need to be able to be a person who sees the mind. You need to see what the mind is saying. You have to understand that when the mind is saying something stupid, you have no I in there. I mean the I for ideas. I mean the I for I love you. You have to realize that the ego mind will speak anything except for the I in ideas. I say the word is I am. I love you. You have to realize that the ego will repeat in the mind anything that has no I. You have to realize that Jesus is full of I. You have to realize that Jesus is the truth. You have to realize that I is the truth. You have to realize that the I will set you free. You have to realize the truth shall set. You have to realize that the truth shall set you free. You have to realize the truth is I. You need to increase your I capacity. You need to become more aware of your mind through heart. You have to realize you become more aware of your mind through heart coherence. You have to realize that the more person chases women and has sex with them, and even the other way around, you have to realize that you're going to create more memories with those women and men through what you've done. You have to realize now you are more of a sex addict because you're revisiting those past moments with those people. You have to realize that when you have 10,000 images of 10,000 people you've had sex with, you have this massive database of ego you've accumulated. You now have to go into those memories with your heart coherence. You have to realize they're going to pop up in daily life. You have to be in the heart. You have to overcome it with your heart. You may get horny. You guys may get horny. You may get an erection. You ladies may get turned on. You have to realize that you have to push your heart into the horniness. You have to also push your heart into overcoming alcohol and cigarettes and all drugs. You have to realize that when you have temptation to have sex, you push your heart coherence into the temptation and you overcome it with your heart. You overcome it with your heart. You push your heart into the temptation. You also do that for imagination. You have to realize that when you have a picture of a strong sexual encounter you had with a woman or man, you have to realize you push into it now with your heart. I realize that I get horny even talking about it because I really had this connection with a woman while having sex. I realize I get turned on by it. I realize that when you get turned on, you are really saying that you need that woman. You really never need the woman. You never need the woman. You just have to realize that when you're getting turned on, you have to realize it's your ego that's forcing you to go have sex. You have to realize that you never need sex. You have to realize that you can have sex when you have one woman or man. You never go searching for more women and men to have sex with. You let them find you. You then deserve it. You only deserve sex when somebody comes to you to ask for it. You will attract more of those who are in relation with you. You never need to worry about going to prostitutes and strippers to give them money for sex. You need to focus on yourself and working on your career for the long term so you can live more than your friends and family and be more successful, because it's about being more successful and never having sex and fucking around. You have to understand that helps no one. You have to understand that helps nobody. You have to realize that no one is part of any one person. You have to realize that a nobody is a somebody. You need to realize that you need to be a somebody only. You have to realize that when you get turned on and you have an erection, you have to transmute the energy, as Napoleon Hill says in his book, Think and Grow Rich. You have to realize that in order for you to do this, you'll push your heart into the horniness of your mind, and you just push into it. You push your heart into it. You push your heart forward. You push it outward. You project your heart outward and you just you push your heart into it and you just say, I will never do this because my heart says no. You have to realize you have to make your heart say no. You have to say no with your heart. You have to say, I have my heart over here. I will never let anything distract me, and I'll never let anything that's going to bring me down. You have to understand that those people who are sex addicts today and drug addicts have memories associated with being a drug addict and a sex addict. You have to realize that a sex addict is only a sex addict because they envision too much sex in their mind with images based on how much sex they've had. You have to realize it's a chase. You have to realize they're chasing. You have to realize the person who has 10,000 images of 10,000 sexual encounters with a woman or a man is going to be different than the person who is Jesus, who never had a sexual encounter at all. You have to realize that Jesus is obviously living a better life because Jesus is living more in the moment and never has to recall a sexual memory. You understand? You have to now realize that this person who has 100 sexual images is also going to be much more clarity in the mind than the person who has 10,000 images. You have to realize that your images in your life can disturb you. You have to realize no matter what that you explain and you keep repeating what you say so that people can get the message. You talk slow and you talk with empathy. You have to realize that now it's about heart coherence. You have to realize that an alcoholic is only an alcoholic because they have drank so much alcohol and made so much memories with alcohol that they always think about those memories to make them an alcoholic. You have to realize that they are missing heart coherence. You have to push through temptation with your heart to say no. You have to realize what that is. You have to realize that when a person wakes up in the morning, you have to realize they have a habit of smoking a cigarette or going to the pub to drink a beer because their friends are there and because they have so much memories associated with those friends and alcohol, and also that pub with alcohol, and everywhere they've drank alcohol, they have associated a memory with that. You have to realize that they have fallen. You have to understand that when a person associates alcohol with a song and they hear the song, you also see the memory you see an image in the memory that says, you had alcohol with this song. You need to have alcohol now. You understand? You have 10,000 different alcohol drinks. You have 10,000 different memories that you have to overcome. You have 10,000 sexual encounters. You have 10,000 sexual memories you have to overcome. I'm not saying for you to never make more memories. I'm saying for you to never go into the past to recall those memories. You need to cut the past off. You have to realize that the only thing stopping the alcoholic and the cigarette smoker and the drug addict and the sex addict and the fat person is their memory base and their imagination, which is their ego. You need to overcome the ego. You need more heart coherence. So when you attempt to throw a chocolate, you push your heart and you say, I never need that. I'll say, fuck that. I'll put the I there. I'll never just say, fuck that. I'll just say it this way. I will say, fuck that. I never just say, fuck that. I realize that's ego. You need the I there. You never just say, fuck that without the I. You have to realize no matter what, that when you see a cigarette in the morning, you have to realize that many people, such as I before, I realized that I was a person who would wake up in the morning, I'd have a coffee and a cigarette to go along with my morning. I had no nutrition. I had no self-education. I start doing the coffee. I had so many memories with coffee and cigarettes in the morning that I was always picturing every single morning waking up with caffeine and cigarettes. I realized that every time I had coffee and caffeine and cigarettes, I associated that with a different type of memory in a different style. I may have had a cigarette with friends. I may have had a cigarette at a coffee shop. I realized that I'm not smoking. I'm a non-smoker. I realized that wherever I smoke a cigarette before, I realized that wherever I smoked a cigarette before, I've associated a memory with cigarettes in that area. I realized that when I visit an area, I'll certainly have a craving for a cigarette where I have smoked a cigarette. I realized that you may be a person who is a 10-year smoker now. You may have went to a friend's house where you smoked a cigarette. I promise you that when you go into that house, and you go into the same room, even 10 years later, you've associated a memory of you smoking there. I promise you, as soon as you enter a room there, where you smoked a cigarette, in that room specifically, you will start thinking to smoke a cigarette even 10 years later. Because you associated a memory of you smoking with that person in that area. I promise you that when you are around drug addicts and doing drugs with them, you've associated drugs with those people and created an image of them in your mind. I mean, when you think about them, you think about a drug. I realize that when you see their image, you see drugs. I'm not a drug addict. I realize you need to realize now that in order for you to break the cycle of drugs, you also have to remove those friends that are doing drugs. You can never be around the people you've done drugs with when you need to quit drugs. You have to realize that you have to break the cycle. You have to realize that the cycle is your habits. You have to break your habits in order for you to increase a better way of life. You need to realize that your habits, you only increase. You never decrease your habits. You only increase the likelihood of your success. You never decrease anything about you. You have to realize that you may have been a person who started equally with everybody. You have to realize that some people are going up. You have to realize other people are going down. You need to be you need to be with the persons. You have to be with the people who are going up. You have to realize that the people who are going up have more heart coherence. You have to realize that those people who are going up have more EQ. You have to realize that those people going down are people who have IQ. You have to realize that IQ has everything to do with ego. You have to realize that IQ is all thinking. You never think. You have to realize that EQ is all action. You need to be an action taker. You need to be a doer. You have to realize that doing is heart coherence. You have to realize that doers and a doer is a person who uses heart coherence methods to succeed. You have to realize to rule your imagination, you need to be a person who is staying away from all the images of your life. I realize that I get horny for women. I realize that no matter what, I never even get horny anymore because I overcome my horniness and I get turned on when I get around a woman. I realize no matter what, when I do that, I go into my heart even more because it's more about I than her. You have to understand that when people are devoting themselves to others, I realize that most people are falling behind in their I. You have to realize that it's the same as a fat person who is single. You have to realize when you have a couple who is having sex, who are drug addicts, you have to realize that it's the same attempt as a person who's fat and single. You have to realize now the fat person who is single will go for a chocolate. You have to realize that person has a drug addict mentality. You have to realize that sugar is a drug. You have to realize that that person has accumulated Mars bars as a fashion show in order for them to look good. You have to realize that they're fake. You have to realize they're believing other people about what Mars bars is. You have to realize that person sees Mars bars. You have to realize that person sees Mars bars and gets all spooky and needs it because they get irritated once they go away from it. You have to realize that when you get irritated and resentful and jealous, you have to realize it's your ego and it's never really you. You have to realize that when they grab the Mars bars and put it on the counter to give money for it and they're fat and ugly, you have to realize that they're overtaken by the ego mind. You have to understand they think too much about it. You have to understand they never planned to stay away from the Mars bars in the first place. You have to realize that it's the same as those couples who are in a relationship who are doing alcohol. You have to realize they're together and they both need to go grab the alcohol, and also because they're doing that, you can realize that they have no eye coherence. You have to realize that their relationship is a facade. You have to realize that they rather give more love to one another by putting their other partner first than putting themselves first. You have to realize that they have accumulated all these memories of them of helping more other people than helping themselves. You have to realize they have all these memories of themselves helping others more than themselves. You have to realize that they're going into this imagination of helping others more and neglecting themselves. You never do that either. You have to realize it's the same scenario as the person who is eating Mars bars, who is fat and ugly. You have to realize when you're fat, you're ugly. You can always be better than that. You can be better than fat. You never need to be fat. I realize that many people romanticize fatness. I never need you to romanticize being fat. I need you to realize that you need to be better than fat. I need you to realize that you need to own it. Really. You need to own that you're what you are. I realize that when you actually go and brand yourself as being fat and you own it completely, I realize that you will start to attract a better life for yourself. I realize it's much better for you to own what you have than to never even do anything about it. I realize that I do see fat people. I realize that they can be so much better and sexier than what they are. I realize although I see inspirations in terms of fat people who can get up on cinemas and inside a photo shoot to do all these nice beautiful poses, because I was never able to do it when I was fat. I realize that lifts me up when I see that. I realize because I see that person's very strong. I realize they're on TV and they're fat. I was fat and I was never on TV. You have to understand that you need to now be a person who's going your own way. You have to realize that it's more heart coherence about temptations. You have a temptation to smoke cigarettes, you push your heart into it. You push outward with your heart. You push into the temptation, because every time you have a temptation, you have to realize you've created an image around it. You may have a temptation to have sex. You realize when you have a temptation to have sex, you get horny. You have to realize when you get horny, you push heart coherence into it. You start doing something. You just stay where you are. You push your heart into the horniness and you start doing something anyway. You need to do something. You can never stay still. You have to move. You can move in the spot. You never have to go and walk 10 kilometers to overcome a temptation. I used to do that. I used to go walk believing I used to be believing that I was a nobody. I used to believe that I have to go walk 10 kilometers to overcome a temptation. I used to be believing that I was a person who had to go around the block to overcome something. I realized that it was never the type of way to really do it. I realized that you can move in the spot. You can really do anything in the spot. You can get out your phone and you can start journaling your temptations, and you can start doing a video and recording something of self-education and teaching someone something so that you can help yourself. You have to understand that in life, you help yourself first. You get to the place, you never ask, you just help yourself. You understand? You never ask about anything. You just help yourself. You have to ask yourself. You can ask questions. You can ask other people questions. You can ask yourself. You just have to realize that the foundation of helping yourself first is really putting yourself first in terms of your mind, in terms of having no mind. You have to realize that your mind is never important. Your mind and what's up here, you have to realize what's in the brain is memories and fucking nothing. You have to realize that everything is in your heart. You have to realize that you just cut off the mind, as the Buddha. You have to realize you cut off the mind as the Buddha says. I never need you to cut off your head now. I never need you to go kill and slice your throats and cut off your head and mind. I mean in a literal sense that you never do that. I mean literally, you need to just be and live in the body and still be alive. Just have no mind. Otherwise, it's just have no mind. I need you to realize that those people who are drug addicts and people who have bad behavior and criminality are people who are going back in the past to just do what that. You realize that they're just doing that because their ego is saying, you feel comfortable here to do this. I need you to go and do more of what you're comfortable with. You have to understand that you need to be out of comfort zone. You need to go find yourself a new memory. You need to make new memories in order to flush out the old patterns. You have to realize that no matter what, you have to realize that making new memories is much better than old memories. You have to realize that no matter what, you need to make newer memories anyway. You just have to overcome those newer memories and your old memories. You have to realize you can only do that in the moment with heart coherence. You have to rule your imagination. You have to realize what that means. You have to realize it means take more responsibility and take ownership and also overcome the mind and overcome your ego. You have to overcome all your memories because your memories have got a lot to do with your habits. You have to understand that those people who are negative today have more images about being negative. You have to realize that it's because they go back into the negative aspects of life and their images because they've never found their triggers about what's making them negative. You have to understand that 99% of the world never even has a journal. You have to understand that they're never planning to succeed. You have to realize they're never planning to overcome the mind. You have to understand that they are just running throughout life and going with what everyone else is doing. You have to realize when you're doing that, you'll be lost. You create more memories with them. You'll also be a slave to your mind. You have to realize that most people never even know about this video. You have to realize that most people are lost completely. You have to realize that most people are just slaves on the mind in terms of what they did. You have to realize they're revisiting how they were when they were 5 years old. You never revisit the past. You never be old in the first place. You have to realize that the youngest moment of your life is now. You have to realize that just because you're a baby before and you look like one, you are still that baby. You're just more mature. You remain a baby throughout life. You become younger as you grow. You become 100 years young. You never become 100 years old. You have to realize you just stay young forever. You are forever young. I want to be forever young. I realize that song inspires me because I'm always young now. I'm always doing something to make me young. I never want to be. I only am right now. I am right now. You have to realize that to want to be is something that you desire and wish for. You have to now do it. You have to do it. You can never just wish for it. You can never wish for anything in life. You can never wish for a Ferrari. You may have an image about a Ferrari in your mind. I promise you that you overcome it with your heart coherence. You may have an image about the dream woman you might have, or the dream man you might have. You have to overcome that because you're saying that you need somebody to fulfill you. You're saying that you need to create an image with your ego in order for somebody else to fulfill you. You have to realize that you overcome all the future moments of your life that you have in images. You overcome it with your heart coherence. You also do that for your past memories. You really do it for God. You never do it for anybody. You have to realize that it's more about overcoming your sexual temptations, and also you have to realize that when you're chasing around having sex and making more memories to just make more memories, you're going to fall more into the ego trap. You have to realize that you go create memories, you just have to overcome those barriers now. You have to overcome the memories that you made. You can never be repeating the same mistake twice. You can never be doing something more than once. You have to overcome it now. You understand? You can never just go revisit the past 500 million times because you had such a good memory. You understand how much time you would waste? You have to overcome that nice special moment. You have to create some new moments now. You have to move on from life. You can never be repeating the past. You have to realize that the past is your imagination. You have to realize that the past is also your future. You have to realize that the past and future are the yin yang. You have to understand that it never exists anymore. You have to understand that. You move on from it. You never even think about the sexual encounters you had, and that way you'll never be a sex addict. You never think about the smokes you've had in life. You understand? You'll never be a smoker. You never think about the trauma you've had. You'll never be traumatic. You understand? You never picture it. You never picture the past and future, and that way you'll never think about it. You have to realize that you have to remove the past memories and the future memories in order for you to live in the moment. You have to realize that when you've had a nice, beautiful woman in your life and you picture her, you're tempted to have sex because you associate her as she's so beautiful that you just need to have sex with her. You have to realize that you need to really, really show yourself something much better. You have to realize, I see that pump is in my mind at the moment. I realize no matter what, I had that abbreviation with sex. I have to pump her. I realize no matter what, you understand. I have to repeat it because otherwise I forget about it. I just say it with the I. You have to realize that it's never really about that anymore. I realize it's more of my theory so that I can learn something. I realize no matter what, you need to realize that when you have a word just blurt out in your mind without the I, you need to speak it out with the I. You need to show yourself that you can see the mind and what it's saying so that you can repeat it in words with the I. I love you. You have to realize that sometimes your ego just may say love you without the I. You never say love you, you say I love you. You have to repeat it out aloud. You just say to yourself, I hear the ego saying love you. I hear the ego saying pump. I hear the ego saying coward. I realize that you just repeat it out aloud to yourself. I hear this. I hear that. I realize it's the ego that's really saying it. I realize you're never really schizophrenic. I realize it's more that your ego is trying to disrupt you. I realize that when you hear the word pump in your mind, you're going to have a picture of a pump. You'll hear the petrol station. You understand? I actually seen the petrol station now. I overcome it with my heart coherence. You have to realize that the ego labels everything and puts images into it. You have to realize now, in order for you to overcome the ego and the mind, you've associated your whole world around you with images and words. You have to realize that in order to remember something and learn something, you need to have images and words in order to do it. You have to realize that all you really need is really your heart. You never need anything else. You never need images and words. You just need your heart. You need your heart to really show yourself that you can do it. You have to realize it's never really about words and images anymore. You have to realize it's more about Jesus and how Jesus lived in the heart. You have to overcome words and everything with the heart. You have to realize that the ego is never your friend. You have to realize that Ryan Holiday has a book called The Ego is the Enemy. I suggest you read it. You have to realize that those people who need to learn more, you need to also learn and grow in the process. You need more words and you need more images in terms of life. You need to be exploring life. You just never need to be exploring life in terms of more images and memories in your mind. You never revisit the past and future in your mind. Your ego tries to create a future your ego tries to create a future in the past through images. You have grown up with certain people, you may see them in your mind. You may see them in your mind's eye. You have to realize your mind's eye is your ego. You have to realize that finance has everything to do with heart and has nothing to do with ego. You have to realize that finance and all these subjects in the world have everything to do with ego now. I mean, subjects such as all of them in the world have everything to do with heart. I realize that nothing has to do with the ego in life. I realize that all the subject lines that I've said now has everything to do with EQ and never ego. I realize that I have to repeat something because I just said something that was terrible. I realize that you have nothing to do with the ego in this life. You have to realize that ego is something that you need and that's going to stay with you forever. You have to keep removing it from life. You have to realize that all the pictures and images that you see in life has now to do with your heart instead. You need to relate all the images of the past and future now with your heart, and you need to push the heart you have to push the heart coherence into those images of the future and the past with your heart so you can overcome those images now. You have to realize when you see an image now of a woman in your mind, you have to realize you push into the heart of that image with your heart coherence. You're tuning something. You're just pushing with your heart. Your heart can find it. Your heart can find it. You're pushing into the stripper. You push into it. You push into it. I see it. I push into my heart with her. I push into it. I realize my heart's more important. I realize I over you. I realize I over you. I mean, I'm taking control over my ego. You have to realize that when you're looking at the past and future, you have to realize you'll see images. You have to realize that those people are never talking with you. You have to realize that nobody is in your head except for your ego. You have to realize you only have your ego in your head. You have nothing to do with the head anymore. You have to realize that. You have to realize that the Buddha said, no mind. You understand? You have to understand that the mind is ego. You have nothing to do with stimulating your brain on caffeine because you think you work good. You have nothing to do with thoughts. You never have thoughts in life. You never think. You never do anything with your head. You never do anything with your brain. You are overcoming the brain and the ego and the mind and the head with your body. You have to understand the words mind over matter. You have to understand what that is. You have to understand it's more heart over ego. You have to understand that you need to discipline yourself to overcome the mind, which is mind over matter. You have to understand that mind over matter has everything to do with physics and overcoming the mind. You have to understand that most people say without the mind, you can never really live. I'm honest. You can never live without the mind. You need the ego. You just have to realize that without the ego, you'll never be able to live. You never go shoot yourself. You have to realize that you can still live with the ego. You just overcome the ego in every single moment. You overcome what you're looking at. You have to realize I have a stripper naked on the floor showing me her ass. And she's bare naked. I gave her money for that. I realized I see the image. I push my heart into it. I realized that it's really my ego showing me it. I realized the ego is saying, you need a stripper, man. You need a stripper so she can do that for you again. You have to understand that I have to now push my heart into it. I see her eyes. I see she's looking at me. I see she's on the floor. I realize I would. I realize I understand. I realize she's very beautiful. I realize that I now push my heart coherence into it. I realize I see the image. I see my heart. I look at my heart now. I look at my heart. I realize it's my ego trying to tempt me to go to a stripper bar to look at strippers. You understand? I realize it's a temptation. You need to overcome temptation. I realize it's a real temptation. I realized that a stripper bar that I went into Melbourne, I realized I was doing stuff. I was doing stuff in there. I realized I have all these images of a woman going and walking and crawling to the men out there. I realized she was asking me something about stripping. I have the image. I have the image of the mind. I have the image of her in the mind. I'm not the mind. I'm not the ego. I realize I look at her. I look at all of them. I just push my heart into that moment. I push my heart into that moment of the memory. I push my heart coherence into it. I now see that I say no. I say no. I say no. You have to realize what that means. I mean that once I see a past image, I push my heart into it. I realize that your heart's going to find it. You just say, you have to realize that you have to understand that it's really your ego showing you the memory. You have to understand that when you see the memory of the past, you push your heart into the memory. I promise you that you'll realize that your heart's stronger than the ego. Your heart will overcome any memory that you have. You have to realize that when you're having images of when you're 8 years young, you have to realize you're playing soccer with your friends. You have to realize that your ego is really saying you need to go back into that moment so you can play with your friends again. You have to realize that you need to now push with your heart into it. You say, I've grown up now. I realize I'm younger than ever. I'm doing better than ever. I never need to be 8 years young again. I'm now 28 years young. You have to realize that I'm always one anyway. I'm always sticking to the one barrier. You have to realize you need to be a person who's always young. You have to realize that no matter what age you are, you need to be always younger as you age. You have to realize you never get afraid of any numbers. You put the I before the number. You have to realize when you're putting the I before the number, you'll always be young. You can say you're 28, you can say you're 30, you can say whatever age you are. You just make sure that you're 30 years young. You make sure you're 80 years young. You make sure you're never old. You make sure that you have the I in place before the number. You have to understand when you say I am 28, you have to realize you're really number one because you put the I there first. You never put anything else. You have to realize that when you have anything to do with I'm rich or better, you have to realize you need to explain what that is. You have to realize that when you're saying I'm rich or better, you're going to really just say that you're doing something more incredible than what you are. You have to realize that when you're feeling resentment and jealousy, you just say I'm rich or better. I am rich or better. I realize that Jack Canfield did teach me this. I realized it just clarify something. I've forgiven you. I'm sorry. I am doing something else now. I'm moving in a different direction. You don't know what you said. I'm rich or better. You don't know what I said there. I'm rich states that you are rich. I realize I'm rich or better states you're doing something much better than rich. You don't know. You may have forgiven someone. You may have let a blockage go. You may have let and done something. I realize it's a nice, beautiful technique for you to forgive too. You may have said also that you forgive. You have to realize that as soon as you see the past and future, you need to overcome it with your heart coherence. You have to realize that the mind is going to try to tempt you to have sex and to have alcohol and to have drugs and to be with certain people and with certain women because they look a certain way and because you look at them in a certain direction and you have that memory of how you looked at them, because when you buy into it, you go and look at women in that same fashion even more. You understand? You have to realize because you've bought the ego. You never buy the ego. You never buy memory. You never buy what you've already done. You create new memories. You just overcome it now. You realize that you're never a slave to the mind. You understand? You have to understand that what you've learned in the past is full of memory and experience. You need experience and memory. You have to realize that you need your heart even more. You just need your heart. You have to realize that you always have memories and experiences in your life. You just now have to realize that it's not about experiences and memories anymore. You have to realize it's more about living in the moment with your heart and overcoming the experience of your life and the memories of your life now. You have to realize it's about that now. You will go on and create more memories and experiences, I promise you. I promise you that you'll even revisit, because your mind, your actual ego, is going to put the images in your head. You can never take away the memories unless you shoot yourself. You can never take away the experience unless you shoot yourself. You can never take away the ego and thinking and thoughts unless you shoot yourself. You always think, you always have the ego, you always have memories, you always have experiences. I'm saying though, I realize all I'm saying is you have the experiences, you must overcome it so you're never a slave to the mind and imagination. You have to realize that many people are imaginating. I don't know what the fuck they're doing. You have to realize that many people are lying to themselves about how other people are saying that imagination rules reality and that imagination is much better and whatever. You have to realize that is people saying that you need to go into the ego. You never need to go to the ego. You just need to be in you need to be in reality right now. You have to realize that when you masturbate, you're probably a person who, such as I, was masturbating to women of the past. I realized that I could do it forever. I realized that it keeps me bound into masturbation. You have to understand, in order for me to overcome masturbation, I have to overcome those images that are related to into masturbation. I realized I only had a few. I had several. You understand? I realized that when I have to masturbate, I may get a certain woman from the past come into my life. I may have some sexual drive. I may really I might start getting really horny. I realize I may get erected. I realize I just had an image. I have to be aware of it before I even start to masturbate and watch pornography. You have to realize I was a person who watched pornography too. I realized that I see many scenarios from porn and from the past where I could be tempted to masturbate. I realize it's stupid. I realize now, in order for me to overcome it, I need to use my heart coherence to say, I had this many experiences and experiments with porn and masturbation around these people, around this person. I realize when I see this person who is a porn star, I realize when I see her, now I'll put my heart coherence into it. I realize I see her now with my heart. I realize when I see her with my heart, I'm really seeing the ego there with my heart. You need to label everything that you see with your heart. Now, you need to relate everything in terms of memories and experiences with your heart so you can have heart coherence, so you can overcome your imagination, so you can overcome your slavery to pornography and masturbation and your temptations to it. You have to realize you overcome temptation. You have to realize what temptation is. You have to realize that temptation has everything to do with
images. You have to realize that as soon as you're tempted, you will start getting erected. You have to realize when you're tempted, you will have an image about something. You may have an image about a food that you need. You overcome that food that you see in the image with your heart coherence. You may be very tempted to go eat tofu because you feel that tofu is today and you must have it today. You have to realize in order for you to stay away from tofu, you look at the image and you put your heart coherence into it and you say, I see tofu with my heart now. You'll never ever be in my body. But no matter what, I love tofu. I love tofu. You can relate that with anything. You can relate tofu with McDonald's, for example, in this image sense. You have to realize that tofu is much more healthy. I eat tofu. I love tofu. I just used a bad example there. I realize no matter what, it's more McDonald's. I see McDonald's, I push my heart into it now. I never need to go there. I am more important than McDonald's. I'm more important than that person. I realize I see a beautiful woman. I see she's so sexy. I start to check her out. I get some images from her. I push my heart into it now. I push my heart into it. I see her legs. I push my heart into it now. I'm really tuning my heart. I'm really tuning my heart into the leg fashion there. I see it. I see my heart more there. I see my heart more. I realize my heart's overcoming her legs. I realize now, because I've seen her legs, I started to envision myself with those legs. I started to envision myself having a woman who has those legs. I realized that it's really my ego who's envisioning that. I realize I have to overcome the ego now. I have to say to the ego, I realize that I'm more important than those legs over there. You use heart coherence for this. You have to realize that it relates to everything. You have to realize that it's the same for a drug addict. You have to realize it's the same for anybody who is trying to overcome a temptation and barrier in their life and physical challenges and whatever. You have to realize that when you are picturing bodybuilders, you have to overcome it with your heart coherence too. You have to realize you overcome that because you're still yet to achieve it. You still have to go with your heart coherence and you have to say, I'm more important than them. You understand? You have to understand when you have envisioned the future and you see woman and something in the future, you feel that you never really measure up to those people. I realize, I look at my muscles, I realize I see big bodybuilders in the future. I obviously have goals to be a massive muscular person. I see other people who are more muscular than me in the future. I see beautiful women I have to measure up to. Now I use my heart coherence on those people. I say, I see you, bro. I see you. I understand. I have a heart though. I have a heart. I understand. When I see those people now in the future, in my mind, in the images I made from the future, I realize I put my heart into it. I realize now I feel more important than those people. I don't care about their muscles. I don't care what they're doing. I don't care about that woman I have to measure up to. I realize that she has to chase me now. I realize I never chase her. You understand? You have to realize that you need to overcome the images of your mind. You need to overcome the temptations of what you have. You may have cravings for food. You may be a person who eats burrito. You may be a person who eats chocolate. You may be a person who eats junk food. You have pictures of that in your head. You need to overcome it with your mind coherence. You need to push your heart into what you see with the mind. You have to realize that you are just really pushing into what you see that the mind is giving you. You're never doing anything with the ego. You're saying to the ego that you are more living in the heart and that you'll never fall for the ego's tricks. You have to realize though, in order for you to lose weight and quit drugs and also stay away from a woman, you have to stay away from it. You have to realize that no matter what, you have to stay away from most food in this term for you people who are losing weight. You have to stay from most. You have to stay away from most foods. You see twisties, you stay away from twisties. You see burritos, you stay away from it because you understand it's going to put on weight. You see pizza, you stay away from it. How do you know though? You have to go and learn. You have to go and learn nutrition. You have to go and learn something. You have to go and learn and you have to go teach it. And you have to go become the best in that. You have to go teach the best about nutrition. You have to go be passionate about something. You understand? You have to understand that passion derives from learning. You have to learn something. I learn life. I'm a life coach. I teach life. I'm a person who worships life. You understand? I worship life. I worship something much more. I realize I worship my life. I have a life. I'm grateful for it. You understand? I'm grateful for my life. You have to realize that I am a person who's a scientist in life. You never need a doctorate degree and a certificate to say you need to study something and learn something. You can just go and make a passion of learning something that's going to make you passionate. You have to realize that anything you learn in life is making you more passionate. You have to realize that when you look at porn stars and people having sex, you need to push your heart into it. You need to push your heart currents into it to say it's really the ego that's showing you those images of people having sex in your mind. You need to overcome it with your heart now. You need to realize in order for you to quit drugs, you need to stay away from it. In order for you to become a person who's lost 47 kilos, such as I, you have to stay away from most certain foods. You have to realize the key is staying away. You have to realize that in order for you to become less of a sex addict, you need to stay away from sex. You have to understand that. You have to understand that one is more than enough. You can have memories and images with just one. You have to understand though, that when you are a person who's having sex with one person over 50 years time, you have built this massive memory bank with this person. You're having sex with them so much. You have to understand that no matter what, you're going to create memories. You still have to overcome the memories. You can be a sex addict with your woman and man. You understand? You probably need it 5-6 times a day. You have to understand that it's never really productive. You understand? You can never just be having sex all day. You do nothing. You never even make progress. You need to have sex at least once a day. I would have sex once a day. I also would make sure that I overcome the barriers with my heart coherence, which is what I'm speaking about here. You have to realize that you can go and have sex and you can go and do what you're doing. You just have to realize that you need to do it better now. You never need drugs in the first place. You never need more than one woman. You understand? You never need more than one man. You just need yourself most of all. You need yourself most of all. You put yourself as number one. You also realize that you need marriage. I realize that some people never even need marriage. You just need yourself then. You understand? You need to be a person who's leveling up. You may be a person who never needs kids. You just need yourself. You don't need kids. You realize that Jesus never had kids. You realize that Jesus was never married. You realize that Jesus never had anybody except for Jesus. You have to realize that when you're imagining something, you be very careful. You be very careful because your ego is all imagination. Your ego is the imagination. You understand? You have to understand that imagination is from the mind. You have to understand that anything that's mind related is ego. You stay away from imagining. You never have to imagine. You never imagine anything. You be more in the body and the heart than you are in your imagination and your ego and the mind. You have to realize you be more in heart coherence. You have to realize that the key to becoming a greater scientist and, let's say, a better person in life is stay away from most certain areas of life and also study every single area of life. You have to understand that Brian Tracy has said, make sure that you study every single percent in terms of you study 1% of every life. Because no matter what, you always need to be open-minded about everything. You study 1% about excellence, you study 1% about positivity, you study 1% about doing videos, you study all the topics in life. You go teach it, you go teach something. You have to realize that any images you have about even your passions, you have to realize that even images of yourself, your ego may give you images of yourself. You have to realize that it's the ego. You have to say, I see myself when I was fat. I overcome the ego barrier. I overcome that with my heart because I never need to be fat again. I never need to be the past. I'm a new person now. I'm a much better person. I was ugly before. I'm a much better person. I realized I was a baby. I never need to go into that state again. I realized I'm still a baby. I'm still a baby. I'm just a grown up now. I realize I now have to go return into that little small child I was. I realize no matter what, I'm a person who's grown up, who was a baby. I realize that I never need to return into the little baby that I was. I realized that I am still a baby though. You have to understand. I realized that I had pictured myself as a little baby. I'm still a baby. I'm just more mature now. I realized I have an image. I just never return to the past. I never return to anything of the past. I never need that. I'm much better now. I overcome it with my heart. You understand? You may be addicted to something. You have to understand that whatever you're addicted to is ruling over you. You understand? You never be addicted to anything. You have to realize that you just need to grow. You need to grow as a person. You have to realize that you may be a person who's addicted to games. You have to realize that if you're never teaching how to game, you're just wasting time. You realize it's just for yourself and you're never really doing anything. You have to be doing something. You understand? You never just be a homeless person on the street. You go teach people how it is to be homeless on the street. You go teach people everywhere on the street how it is to be homeless. You understand? You go do something about it. You understand? You just go do something about your life. You just go and grow up now. You grow up. I mean, you never go old. I mean, you're growing up. I mean, as you grow, you never grow old. I mean, when you're growing younger. You have to realize that the growing in you is growing younger all the time. You need to be able to grow younger as you age. You have to realize that you're always growing younger. You're never growing older. You have to realize that many people are growing older. You have to realize that many people are never growing and they're becoming more mature and growing up. You have to realize that there's a difference. You have to realize that many people are drinking alcohol and doing drugs and they look older than yesterday. I mean, they have no energy. I mean, they're very old. I mean, they're classical. I mean, they're just out of fashion. You understand? You never need to be that. You need to be the person growing up who looks younger than ever. You need to also be a person who's growing up and has more energy than ever. You have to also be a person who's looking better than ever. You have to be a person who's better than how you were in the past. You can only be better than how you were in the past with wisdom, with more knowledge, with seeing more of the world. You can understand. You have to realize the only way to do this is heart coherence. You push your heart into it. You push your heart to motivate yourself to do everything. You do this video with your heart. You do everything that you can with your heart. You then overcome all the images and barriers that you associated with the past and future with your heart coherence also. You can realize that the heart can go back into the past and really, really overcome the past. You understand? Your heart can go into the future. Your heart can overcome the future too. You have to realize that you can go and plan what you did in the past with your heart. I promise you overcome the past. You have to realize you can go into the future and plan for the future with your heart. I promise you that you'll make a better future. I promise you that when you go and plan without your heart for the past and future, I promise you that you've lost it and you're dying. I promise you that you'll never even pick up the phone to start writing anything. I promise you that when you are a person who is visiting the past and future without a heart in it, you have to realize that you're really dying. You're really never moving forward. You're really never doing anything of heart coherence. You have to realize that you need your heart. You have to realize when you're just visiting the past and future without a heart, you're really a robot. You're just standing still. You need to be a person who has heart coherence. You need to realize you talk with the heart. You do everything with the heart. You understand? You overcome your mental attitude and who you are with your heart. You grow with your heart. You do everything with your heart. You understand? You have to understand that every single pattern that you have now, you have images about it. You can only have better images in your mind when you do heart coherence. You have to understand, to do heart coherence, you need to push with your heart into the habits that you made in your images. You need to overcome those images. You need to break free from slavery and negative cycles with your heart. You have to realize that anything that's disturbing you and taking away your money and causing you trauma and violence, you need to push your heart into it. You need to look at the traumatic experience with your heart and you overcome it. You understand? You need to overcome everything in terms of imagination with your heart. You realize when you look at a picture that you just imagined, I can say that it's your ego. I can say it's your ego taking control. I need you to remember that. I need you to realize that when your ego is taking control of you, go into your heart and push your heart into the imagination. You understand? You then will realize how to do it. I will also, guys, make sure that you guys will. I'll make sure that you guys share this video around. I hope that somebody has learned something in terms of. I hope that somebody's learned something in this video. I hope that you have watched this video. I hope that you do share it around. I hope that you realize there are many people in the world that never even have this information. I realize I am 28 years young. You have to realize that your eye is the most important factor of your life. You also need to realize that you just make sure that you're in your heart coherence every single day and you're overcoming your imagination so that you can how to rule imagination. You have to realize I've already taught you. You have to realize that now you go out and apply the information. I will see you guys in the next video, guys. I hope that you enjoy your day. I love you and I'll see you later.